All right, guys, and welcome to my Monday night doubleheader prediction. I am going to start off with what I think will be the worst game on Monday night, knock on wood. But don't get me wrong, I would be thrilled to see the Lions not play well on Monday night in prime time. But I'm going to start with Tennessee Titans visiting the Miami Dolphins. As everyone knows, Mike McDaniel is keeping the starting QB under wraps. I think, excuse me, that with that being said, we already know who the starter is. We all know that they wouldn't have traded for Tyler Huntley if they thought that Thompson could just be the guy. There is no way that you're trying to trick me. And obviously, you're trying to trick a Tennessee team where you are going to have to throw it through the air more than likely. A-Chain, while he's, a good player, he's a speedy guy. And I don't think Tennessee is really going to buckle under your shaky O-line run game. And I think that Mike McDaniel's going to want to let loose and really try to, make Huntley scramble around doing things and zipping it to guys like Hill and Waddle. That's really what I think we're going to see a lot of. And I like Tyler Huntley. Tyler Huntley is a solid backup. If not, maybe one of the best backups in the league right now. Any team he's been on and he's had to sub in for, he brings a good knowledge to the game. He brings, decent arm talent. And he's not exactly an easy guy to game plan for because he does have running ability. He just reminds me of a guy who, while he's got electric ability about him, he's not going to be a guy who goes out there and plays high risk football like some of these other scramblers. He's going to play smart football and, make passes to guys. And what better team to get pulled onto with two of the fastest wide receivers in the league and, a good running back in A-Chain. Now, the Titans, as we all know, they haven't been having an easy time of it. Will Levis, not terrible play, but back-breaking interceptions, essentially. That, to me, this is what he needs to clear up. And it seems easy to say that this is all he needs to clear up. But all that it shows me is that you've got a guy that he needs to be mentally strong the whole game because he's still a young quarterback and he's, it's not easy to just get rid of the mistakes. People are saying the Titans could win this game against Miami. I think they could win this game. I don't think the Dolphins are going to run away with it. They could potentially, but I think Tennessee's corners are going to be scrappy with Miami. And it's not going to be easy. And it's one reason why I was like, the Tua injury is so bad because while, people try to jam and make it tight windows at the line type of thing, you've got Tua who fits it through these tight holes. And I don't think, even with Huntley being, more mobile than Tua, I think you've got to run a different kind of offense. And Mike McDaniel is the guy. But, like I said, this Tennessee secondary isn't really to be trifled with. They haven't really, no team has really threw these guys under the bus when they've matched up against them. The Jets barely eked out a win. Chicago essentially, they won because of their defense and special teams, not because of their offense. And then my Packers, while Will Levis did have some success, these receivers were going up and balling for it that game. And they still, ran the football quite a bit. So it's like this Tennessee defense, while revamped, has been pretty good. You've just got to cut the offensive backbreakers, essentially. So with this game, I think what we're looking at is a game that I want to say is going to be tight, but I do favor the Dolphins this game. I think the Dolphins, I think they're going to score, I'm going to call the game 23-13 with Tennessee. Because Tennessee just looks like they're a team that refuses to kind of get shut out with the talent that they have. And Will Levis does string together a good amount of passes and good rushing with Tony Pollard. And that's my prediction for the first game of Monday night. Now, moving on to what should be kind of maybe a seeding-based game, potentially. You got the Seattle Seahawks at 3-0. And then the Detroit Lions, who are 2-1 with their only loss coming to the Buccaneers. It's in Detroit. It's primetime football. Seattle does have a number of guys that are questionable on defense. But I don't think that, many of them are going to be out. We've obviously got Jonathan Hankins, Leonard Williams, Uchenna Nwasu, Tyrell Dodson, Jerome Baker, Boy Mafe, all questionable. A completely healthy secondary, besides Jarek Reed, the second being out, but he isn't their starter. And you've got the guys, Rick Woolen, Devin Witherspoon, and then Trey Brown. I wouldn't say this is Legion of Boom 2.0, but you could classify it as McDonald's own version of Legion of Boom with, the talent that these guys have. And I don't think it's going to be an easy time for Goff to throw it a lot, especially with Frank Ragnow being out. I think Ragnow being out is a huge blow. You know that if he could play, he would be playing, but he's not. And, Graham Glasgow, I don't think is just going to be able to fill his shoes, which I think that David Montgomery's touches and yards per carry is going to suffer a little bit. I think that, they're going to have to use Jahmyr Gibbs maybe a little bit more, and they have been using him a lot, obviously. They have, different jobs for Gibbs and Montgomery. Montgomery's your pound-it running back that has good speed, but is your pounded up the middle running back. And then Gibbs, you're receiving an outside, running threat. I think they're going to have to lean on that a bit more. But I think that the way that the Seattle team plays, I think that they're, going to be ready for outside runs. And then talking about the Seattle Seahawks offense, to me, a little to be desired. It's similar to last year where it's like, oh, the big play threat is there and they've got good talent. Kenneth Walker, they say, may play. He's still questionable with his oblique injury. The only other, injury on offense is Noah Fant, their starting tight end. He's questionable, but overall, looking at this, offense, Charles Cross is having a great year, with very high PFF grades so far. And overall, these guys have been keeping Geno Smith upright a little bit better than last year, I feel like. But then you've got Detroit and obviously what they have. And it's like Aiden Hutchinson is really showing he's potentially top 5, if not top 5 already, with how many splash plays he makes. Aleem McNeil, an absolute beast. And, you know, just a very solid defense that obviously they've kind of revamped with bringing Carlton Davis in, who has struggled a little bit with penalties and coverage. Terrion Arnold, looking very good. Amik Robertson. And overall, to me, their defense, Kirby Joseph playing well, Brian Branch playing well, Melifonwu even, making some plays this season. But overall, this game, I want to go with Seattle just because I want to see Detroit lose and continue their losing streak to their Lions. Because obviously Campbell has been 0-3 against Seattle since he's taken over. And here's the hard truth of it. I think that Amon-Ra is really going to give Devin Witherspoon a run for his money, their slot guy. And even after all the high talk of Jamison Williams, he hasn't really had a crazy game this year. It seems to me like the Detroit Lions offense, not that it has been figured out, but the most points they've scored is 26 this year. And we're used to Detroit being able to score kind of on a dime and look, I wouldn't say unpredictable, but they've been known as a ticking time bomb in years past. And to me, they haven't had that this year. Obviously, against Tampa Bay, they scored 20. They lost. They scored 16. They lost. Against Arizona, they scored 20 and they won, but they were stagnant to the point where Arizona had plenty of chances to try and tie the game, but the only reason that didn't happen is their offense also stalled. So you look at, this team, they haven't been able to go over 30. If you had told me there was one team that had scored over 40 twice, and Jamison Williams had kind of emerged as kind of, a better wide receiver this year, I wouldn't have said the Saints. I would have thought it was the Lions. But the Lions, they've kind of like, I wouldn't say tapered off offensively, but I don't think teams are as, confused, or they're not giving up as many big plays against them. I think Goff's play is still fine this year. But overall, he's got 3 TDs to 4 interceptions. I mean, he threw interceptions last year. But it's almost like they're kind of balancing out this year, where people know what to expect from the Lions. I mean, same offensive coordinator who said, hey, I'm coming back so we can go for the Super Bowl this year. But overall, their offense hasn't been there. But their defense has been playing better. They obviously, like I said, Hutchinson has been, a game changer. He's got, he looks like he's, competing with like TJ Watt for who can be more disruptive on their team this year. And like I said, they address secondary. Their secondary is definitely much improved. But, you got Seattle, who's probably the toughest, maybe beside, to me, Seattle's got a somewhat similar offensive talent around their weapons as even the Buccaneers, who obviously we know that Detroit's only losses to the Buccaneers. You obviously have DK Metcalf, who is a lot faster than Mike Evans is, but they're both similar, guys with big size, physical play. And then you've got Jackson Smith-Njigba, who's kind of that slot guy, that Chris Godwin type. Probably not to that level yet, but he's made improvements. And then you've obviously got the anomaly in Tyler Lockett, who, is a good player. I think that overall, this looks like it's going to be a hard game to predict. And it's like I said, Seattle, they've had good offensive drives, and DK Metcalf has seemingly given them the edge in these last couple games with 2 huge passes, which I'm convinced Campbell's he's telling these guys they're not gonna let it happen. They're not gonna let Metcalf somehow get like a 2 yards past your guy and then run off with the speed that he has, this game. But it's like, you never know, maybe they'll scheme him or something like that. Carlton Davis has somewhat struggled in coverage this year, even though they grabbed him as the veteran guy of the cornerback room, but he's struggled a little bit and he's been targeted a little bit. So looking at this game, I really feel like it kind of does come down to who lets up the big play or who has the big play, that type of thing. I want to lean the Seahawks because they've had it, and I think that their secondary is performing a little bit better than Detroit. But you go into Detroit, and Detroit is a hard place to play. And that sort of thing. And I think that Detroit, they kind of want that measure of revenge because they haven't been able to beat this team. So looking at this game, I'm honestly thinking it might be a 1-point game or decided by a field goal, or something like that. So I'm going to go with, I think the game, I think it's going to be kind of high scoring, but I think I'm going to go with Seattle for this game. And I'm going to call Seattle. I think it's going to be 28-27. And I think that that's going to be the final score of this game. But if you guys have anything that you want to say in the video, or if you like the video, please like, comment, subscribe. I would really appreciate it. But otherwise, those are my predictions for Monday night. And I'll see you guys next time.